Hello, everybody. Good afternoon. Hope you guys are doing well today. And we have a companion video now. We have a companion video to the video that was made this morning looking at Pro Football Focus's rankings, their lists of top 32 players at each position. So PFF has done this every year for a little bit now. It's a fun series they do every offseason. And I thought it'd be good to take a look at it. Again, I want to stress PFF, not to say they get everything right. They certainly don't. They don't even come close. But they're really, really trying. They do a lot of good work. And I think they get a lot of things right. They do a lot of good work. They do a lot of things that I, as one person working by myself, certainly can't do. And at the very least, it's fun. I don't feel like I'm reading a list put together by some talking head on ESPN. I don't feel like I'm reading a list that somebody like Skip Bayless or Colin Cowherd put together when they're trying to rank, like, say, defensive linemen, when we all know the only thing they know how to watch is a quarterback. So I feel like there's some real thought that goes into this, and I think it's fun to go through. So earlier today we did the offense. Now we're going to do the defense. We're going to take a look at their top 32 players at each position on defense. Things are grouped together, by the way. They don't get super granular, like they have just one list for any interior defender. That could be a nose tackle. That could be a 3-tech. That could be, I guess, theoretically I believe they consider 4 eyes to be interior. You've got edge, and that's any kind of edge. Leo, 5-tech, outside linebacker in a 3-4 whatever. And then they've got off-ball linebacker all grouped together, cornerback all grouped together, and safety all grouped together. So they don't get super, super granular. It's just 5 groups. And this is certainly the list you would expect the Seahawks to do better in. And for the most part, they do. So let's take a look at how the Seahawks are represented here, starting with the interior defense. Please like this video if you haven't already. Subscribe if you're new. Click the bell for notifications. Become a channel member for $2 a month. Those are the best ways to support the channel. Interior defensive line, we don't have to scroll very far to get to Big Cat Leonard Williams, coming off maybe the best year of his career, coming off one of the best years that any Seahawks interior defensive lineman has ever had, and probably should have gotten some Defensive Player of the Year noise, did not. I think that Surtain was always going to win it. Williams should have been a part of the conversation because he was just that good. So not quite top 5. Quinnen Williams, Jalen Carter, Cam Hayward edge him out, but pretty darn respectable. So you might think that's it. So let's go through the list here and see if there's another Seahawk. And if there was another Seahawk, you might be thinking, well, it would probably be Jarran Reed, because Jarran Reed is the player who actually played pretty well and played pretty much the whole season last year. But you'd be wrong. There is another Seahawk, and it's not Jarran Reed. It's Byron Murphy. Now, they are projecting a big leap this year, which I think is a reasonable assumption. And they basically admit, if you read this, they admit he wasn't that good last year, but we think he's going to take a big step forward this year, which, I mean, that's reasonable, right? Like, they've ranked rookies on this list, right? They put Cam Ward ahead of Sam Darnold, and Cam Ward hasn't played a snap. So it's not like projecting stuff is beyond them. I still think it's a little bit weird to try to say that Murphy is a top 30 interior defensive lineman when we have 1 year in the NFL and it was kind of just okay by PFF's own standards. Remember, that's not really me saying that. That's me saying that PFF said it. They gave him a 57.8 grade last year. That means he's basically replacement level as far as they're concerned. That means he's like whatever. So I can understand the projection. It's a reasonable projection. I'm surprised they would commit to it so hard. Like, you do have a guy like a Jordan Davis behind him, a guy who has a proven track record of several good seasons in the NFL now. Are they really going to put him below somebody like Murphy, who is all hypothetical? I guess they are. It does surprise me a little bit. I think this has a good chance of happening, though, so certainly not objecting to it. Jarran Reed, obviously not here. At that point, it would have been I mean, not that Jaron Reed doesn't deserve it, but if there's any player who's due for a regression this year, it's him because of age and because of Murphy getting more snaps. But I think they gave us some pretty good dap here, man. 6 and 27? Yeah, 27, right? Yeah, 27. Pretty good. Okay, edge rusher. Edge rusher, I'm just going to go ahead and tell you guys right now, you're going to be scrolling a long time on this page trying to find a Seahawk. You're going to be scrolling and scrolling and scrolling and scrolling, and you're going to get down to the bottom, and you're going to be like, yeah, there were no Seahawks on that list. And it's not hard to understand why the Seahawks would not have any edge rushers in the top 32. And I'm not here to suggest that it is beyond the pale to point out that this team lacks a true stud edge rusher. But consider the circumstances of this edge room. Uchenna Nwosu barely played the last 2 seasons. If you go look back at how he played in 2022, that's clearly a top 32 edge rusher in the NFL. That's probably a top 20 edge rusher in the NFL. He was very good that year. And he's not old. Like, there's every reason to believe that he could bounce back and have a really good season in 2025, the same way that he did in 2022. He just needs to stay on the field. But you can't really give him benefit of the doubt at this point. Benefit of the doubt was for maybe last year. But now he's going to have to go earn it. And I believe that Boye Mafe was headed towards a season that would have put him in the top 32. Like, maybe near the bottom, right? But you've got guys like Zadarius Smith down here who isn't even on the team. You've got Nick Herbig, who is basically just a pure pass rusher who basically only hits the field on clear passing downs. You've got guys like Josh Sweat, who didn't do that much last year. Boye Mafe was headed for a season where I think he was very clearly going to be worth more than some of these guys near the bottom of this list. Then he got hurt, and he played through it, and he played admirably, but he didn't have the big season, and it makes sense, right? Like, he needs to do it. He needs to have that double-digit sack season. He needs to have that season where he plays at a consistently high level, and it hasn't happened yet, but I think that we have reason to believe that Mafe was headed down that path, and it just didn't happen because of things kind of out of his control. So you take a look at the edge room as a whole. I don't think it's as bad as this implies, but I think that this is a reasonable way to look at it right now. You can't give Nwosu the benefit of the doubt when he's played less than a season's worth of snaps over the last 2 seasons. So makes sense to me, but I think that by the time we get to like October or November, we're going to be feeling pretty good about our edge rusher room. And that's not, and that says nothing of how Derek Hall could get better. And by the way, DeMarcus Lawrence is another guy who PFF has typically loved. He would probably be up here if not for the fact that he only played 4 games last year. So circumstances abound. Okay, linebacker. This is off-ball linebacker. Once again, get your scrolling pants on because we're going to be scrolling all the way to the bottom here before we get to Ernest Jones at number 30, just barely making the cut, just barely squeaking into the top 32. Now, this should not really surprise anybody. PFF has been not too high on Ernest Jones. So I do think that PFF clearly has Ernest Jones in their blind spot. If you look at this Seahawks defense and how they were playing before they got Ernest Jones and how they were playing after, it's such a significant difference. You can't tell me that he's not really good. Maybe he's not elite, maybe he's not great, but he is very, very good. And to say he's not as good as some of these linebackers they have above him, like Azeez Al-Shaair or Jordan Brooks or even a guy like Robert Spillane, I'm not buying it. Honestly, even a guy like Levante David, who has had an incredible career but is coming near the end of it, like I'm not really buying that. I will say that. Even a guy like Dodson, and I want to be clear here. I know this seems like it's kind of a meme. Dodson is a good player. He just wasn't a good fit for our defense. I acknowledge that. I know that. I get the Tyrell Dodson thing. He just didn't fit what we were doing, and we moved on quickly when we realized that. But I don't know if I'd say Dodson's better than Ernest Jones. I got to see a pretty decent sample size of both. But I don't think this is completely insane. I think it's wrong. I can kind of see where it's coming from. There are some limitations here with Ernest Jones that I feel like we're a little bit blind to as a fan base, simply because he was replacing a couple guys that couldn't do it, because Jerome Baker couldn't stay together, he couldn't stay healthy, and Dodson wasn't a good fit. But 30th, this is implying that he's near the bottom. He's not at the bottom because there are more than 32 starting inside linebackers in the NFL. But this is implying that he is closer to the bottom than the top, and I have a hard time buying that. So, can't say I agree, but this is to be expected. Again, I want to stress this. PFF did not think Ernest Jones played well last year, and we're just going to have to disagree with that and move on. It's just going to have to be one of those situations where we say, I think that's their blind spot. And linebackers, I think they get wrong pretty frequently. So it's not shocking. Okay, cornerback. We're going to have a little bit of fun here now. So, number 1, Sauce Gardner, absolute joke. Pat Surtain wins Defensive Player of the Year and doesn't get number 1 corner. Like, okay, whatever. McDuffie, Jalen Johnson, Derek Stingley, DJ Reed, the old buddy, Marlon Humphrey, Christian Benford, Jair Alexander, Denzel Ward, Cooper DeJean, Devin Witherspoon at number 12. All right. Okay. We got something here, people. That's pretty strong. That's pretty good. Number 12th overall at a very competitive position. Remember, there are more than 64 starters, because you've got your 2 outside corners, but most teams play their nickel corner more often than they don't. So it's a competitive position, and Devin Witherspoon ranks 12th. 13th in PFF's advanced coverage grade in 2024, 8th over the last 2 years. Been one of the best run defending corners in the NFL, 2nd in the league in the PFF run defense grade. And just overall, he's been a PFF darling. So this makes a lot of sense. It's probably about right. Like, to me, I look at a guy like Cooper DeJean, who I really, really like. I do. At the same time, I think he benefits tremendously from playing on a pretty stacked Eagles team. So if I were asked, do you want to trade Devin Witherspoon for Cooper DeJean straight up, I would say no. So I would put Witherspoon above DeJean. And I think that's probably about it. Maybe a guy like Jair Alexander needs to be bumped down. I feel like his time in the NFL as a top player is pretty much a wrap. So maybe I'd bump him up a couple of spots, but nothing too extreme here. I think 12 is okay. And, you know, hey, 12 is not a bad number for a Seahawks player to be put at here. Okay, so is that the end of the line? The answer is no, because Reek Woolen also makes the top 20 here. Gets a bit overlooked in the discussion of top cornerbacks because he hasn't replicated his rookie success, which he hasn't. They still think he's excellent in coverage, which is true. He is money in coverage overall. Even when he's not playing that well, his coverage numbers remain very clean. I do think that this ranking, consider the fact that there are probably 80 starting cornerbacks, if not like 90 in the league. Is Reek Woolen really in the top 20% of starting corners? With how bad he is as a tackler, with how bad he is in run defense? I'm having a hard time buying that. And it's also the inconsistency. For my money, this is probably a little bit high. Should Reek Woolen be in the top 32? I think so. As much as I am frustrated with him, I think that's probably okay. But top 20, with his clear deficiencies in terms of focus and willingness to get involved in the run game and tackling, and I don't know. I don't know if I'd go with that. I know that he makes the big splashy plays, and I'm not here to take any of that away from Reek Woolen, but he's a guy that I've kind of already mentally taken a pass on. Like, I don't think this guy's going to be what we were hoping he was going to be when he came out. Or, well, I guess it'd be more accurate to say after the rookie year. But, okay, I mean, it's not ridiculous, I don't think. And that is obviously going to be it for the Seahawks. They have, you know, what else? Are they going to put Nick Emenwari here because he's going to play nickel corner? No. So that leaves one position, safety. And once again, the Seahawks do extremely well. So let's see, Kyle Hamilton, McKinney, Bates, Winfield, Branch, Kirby Joseph, Derwin James, Buda Baker, Brandon Jones, Javon Hall, and Julian Love, number 11. So we do just miss the top 10, but Love had a very good 2024. Really good run defense grade. Really good overall grade. PFF likes him a lot, so it makes sense. I believe that's his best season by PFF standards. And I think this is reasonable. He's a great all-around player. Really important piece of this defense. I think that 11 is about right because, again, there are 64 starting centers. Words are hard, people. 64 starting safeties. And if you were top 10, then you'd be talking about him as like an elite safety. And I don't think he's elite. I don't think that Julian Love is quite an elite safety. He's very, very good, maybe great. So I think 11 is pretty much spot on. So I can rock with that. And then you're wondering, what about the other safety? Is the other safety represented here? The answer is yes. Last spot on the list, Kobe Bryant. And I think this is actually something that I would look at as a feather in the cap of a site like PFF, because most people wouldn't put Kobe Bryant this high. I think most people would not say that Kobe Bryant's a top 32 safety. But when you think about it, there are only 64 safeties that start, and there are a couple of good safeties that are still free agents, like I think Julian Blackmon, excuse me. So you only have to be slightly above average to make this list, and I think Kobe clearly played at an above average level last year. I thought he was actually quite good. I think that there were very few mistakes, and for the most part, I thought that he exceeded and honestly crushed all expectations. So I know PFF liked him well enough, so this is not unexpected. But hey, I'm digging it. I'm feeling it. I think they got this one pretty spot on for the safety spot. So that's it for the defense. Let me know what you guys think. Probably no more videos later today. If so, if something happens, I'll make a video. But tomorrow is mini camp day, first day. We'll be talking about that, talking about whatever it is the team gives us to talk about. Thank you for watching. See you guys later, and go Hawks.